At 2:47 p.m. on October 14th, security footage caught my sister Karen withdrawing $800 from our father's account, the same $800 she claimed I stole before he threw me out in a storm that night. If that lie held until my 21st birthday, one clause could label me unstable and hand her my $45,000 trust fund. I'm 15, soaking wet, and my dad is choosing her story over my life. I held the crumpled, missing cash envelope in my hand. Hey, sweetheart, look at me. That voice didn't come from my father. It came from the dark shoulder of Route 9. After my legs gave out and the road started to tilt like a ship. And I'd already decided not to cry because crying burned oxygen I couldn't spare, didn't it? Before that voice, there was the porch. Rain hammered the steps so hard it bounced. My dad's finger pointed past me, not at me, like I was already an object being moved out of his way. Karen stood behind him, dry, hair perfect, face calm like she was watching a show she'd already seen. $800, she said, soft. And I found pills. I remember the envelope in my hand because it was stupidly normal. A cheap white bank envelope with his messy numbers on the front, the kind of thing you'd use for birthday cash. Only it wasn't birthday cash. It was the price tag Karen put on my life. And my dad treated it like a receipt, didn't he? Get out, Raymond said, until you tell the truth. I tried to talk. I tried to point at Karen, tried to explain chemistry class, the bus, the whole normal day that had nothing to do with $800, $100 bills. My words splashed and slid off him like rain off vinyl, and Karen's eyes stayed on me with that tiny, patient smile that said, "Go ahead, make it worse." So I stepped into the storm. 4 miles later, Route 9 was a black ribbon and headlights cut it into pieces. My jeans turned heavy and stiff, every step a wet slap. Water found the seams of my sneakers and climbed my socks like it was trying to climb inside me. I kept the envelope in my pocket because it was the only thing I had that proved my dad thought there had been cash at all, and Karen had chosen an exact number for a reason, didn't she? A truck passed too close and threw gutter water at my legs. I tasted salt. My hands went numb, then my thoughts did, like my brain was powering down in sections, and the only thing left was one command: don't stop. The last clean moment I remember is gravel biting my knee and the sound of rain on my hooded sweatshirt, loud and steady like applause for a decision I hadn't really made. Then came the car door, footsteps, a flashlight beam that wobbled as it hit my face. Hey, sweetheart, look at me. Gloria Hensley's voice was sharp the way trained people get in emergencies, like she'd learned that calm is for after you're safe. She smelled like peppermint and wool, and her hands didn't hesitate when she lifted my arm. "You're not walking another inch," she said. "I used to work CPS. You're freezing." I tried to say my grandmother's address, but my teeth were a machine, chattering out of my control. Gloria didn't ask me to prove anything. She just moved. Phone, blanket, car heat, like my survival was a simple problem with simple steps, and I could barely stay awake long enough to feel grateful, could I? Hospital lights replaced the rain. White ceiling, beeping monitor, plastic bracelet digging into my wrist. Gloria sat in a hard chair with a folded receipt on her knee, like it was a weapon she'd use if she had to, and the biggest punch landed quietly. My father hadn't come. The storm didn't end. It just put on fluorescent lighting. A nurse told me it was after midnight. My skin felt both hot and cold, like my body couldn't pick a side. The blood pressure cuff squeezed my arm with patient indifference. Gloria leaned in. "Your grandmother's coming." I called Dorothy Reeves. My throat tightened. "He kicked me out," I whispered, and it came out like I was confessing to something. "I know," Gloria said, "and I reported it the second I saw you on Route 9.
The knock on the door sounded official enough to make my stomach drop. Raymond walked in with Karen glued to his shoulder and Jolene hovering behind them like she wanted to dissolve into the wall. Raymond's coat was dry. Karen's eyeliner wasn't smudged by a single raindrop. She held Raymond's phone like it was Exhibit A. "I'm her father," Raymond announced to the room, loud on purpose. "I'm taking her home." Gloria didn't even stand. "You're the father who put her out in a storm. She was hypothermic on Route 9. Karen stepped forward with a plastic bag, a pill bottle visible through it with my name scrawled in black marker. Too thick, too fast, like someone faking a signature they'd practiced once. "We found these," she said gently, "and money."
She's been stealing. The IV pump clicked in tiny, steady beats, like it was counting down. Karen bent close enough that her perfume sliced through the hospital disinfectant, and she lowered her voice so only I could hear. "Stop," she whispered, sweet as syrup. "Just admit you took it. Dad will let you back. If you keep acting like this, they'll hold you. And you know what that unstable clause does to your trust." The word trust hit the inside of my skull like a bell. She wasn't even hiding the motive. She was just betting I was too scared to repeat it out loud, wasn't she? I tried to sit up and the IV yanked my arm like a leash. "You did this," I rasped. Karen's mouth barely moved as she smiled. Then she straightened, widened her eyes for the room, palms open. "See," she said louder. "This is what she does. She twists everything." Gloria's chair scraped back away from her. Karen's gaze flicked to the nurse, already shopping for her next ally. My throat tightened. I could feel how fast a lie spreads when it gets planted first. Then Dorothy Reeves arrives with rain on her shoulders and a wool coat buttoned wrong in her hurry. She didn't look at Karen. She looked straight at Raymond like he was a stain she meant to scrub out. "Move," Dorothy said. Raymond tried to puff up. "Dorothy, this is a family matter." Dorothy pulled a paper from her purse like she'd been carrying it through the storm just to slap it down. "Not anymore." A one-sentence hush fell over the room. The monitor's beep, the distant squeak of a cart in the hall, the paper's dry rasp as Dorothy handed it over. "Emergency temporary guardianship." Fresh stamp. Time in the corner. 12:30 a.m. "I called whoever answers when a child gets dumped in a storm," Dorothy said. Raymond's face cycled from confusion to anger to something like fear. Paperwork scared him more than weather ever did. Karen laughed a small, controlled laugh. "She's manipulating you. She always does." Dorothy's eyes cut to her. "You don't speak until I understand why you're carrying pill bottles like party favors." A nurse told Raymond to step out. Gloria didn't move an inch, and Officer Daniels appeared in the hallway like an exclamation point Gloria had already arranged. Raymond clamped his jaw shut and backed up. It was the first time I'd seen him lose authority in public, and Karen's calm face twitched like she hated the sight, didn't she? Dorothy cupped my cheek, warm, solid. "You're coming with me," she said. "You're safe." I wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. By morning, I left with the hospital bracelet still on my wrist and Dorothy's emergency order folded in her wallet like a shield. Gloria pressed a card into Dorothy's hand. "Maria Santos is assigned," Gloria said. "Save everything. Receipts, photos, messages. Don't let them rewrite tonight." Dorothy nodded once. "We won't." Dorothy's house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner and old quilts. She wrapped me in a blanket and put cocoa in my hands like she could pour warmth back into me. But my head kept replaying Karen's props,
The plastic bag, the marker-scribbled label, the envelope with the neat missing amount. My father's phone full of proof. Objects meant to outvote my voice. Dorothy slid her cordless phone across the table. "We're going to tell it clean," she said. "Timeline first." I swallowed. "He thinks I stole $800. Dorothy's eyes narrowed. "Money doesn't vanish," she said.
It moves. That was the first spark that didn't feel like fear. It felt like a plan, and plans have edges, don't they? Maria Santos called that afternoon. Her voice was firm, neutral, like she'd trained herself not to get pulled by tears. "Sure, I'm assigned to your case," she said. "Answer like you're describing a science experiment. Dates, times, what you touched, what you saw." Dorothy put the phone on speaker and opened a spiral notebook. The pen hovered like it was ready to carve truth into paper. Maria said, "The alleged theft of $800, when did your father say he noticed it was missing?" "Karen said she checked his account after school," I said. The words tasted wrong. "She said I must have taken it that afternoon." Maria paused. "After school, where were you between 2 and 4 p.m.? "In chemistry," I said, because it was my normal life and it didn't deserve to be turned into a crime scene. "Then the bus, then home." Dorothy wrote chemistry in block letters. Maria said, "Where does Raymond keep his bank card?" I said, "In his wallet, on the dresser." Dorothy's pen stopped mid-stroke. She looked at me like a trap had just clicked into place. Maria's tone sharpened. "I'm requesting bank records and ATM footage. $800 is specific. Transactions leave fingerprints." I blurted, "Karen's car is distinctive. White sedan, dented back right bumper, pink plate frame that says Girl Boss." Dorsey underlined dented bumper twice, like she wanted the ink to bruise the paper. Maria went quiet for a beat. She said, "Good. Stay with Dorothy. Do not go back without me or law enforcement. Understood?" "Yes," I said, and my voice sounded smaller than the plan forming in my head. That night, my old phone buzzed with a blocked number. Dorothy watched me stare at the screen until it went dark. "It's her," I said. "Put it on speaker," Dorothy said. And the way she said it made my stomach flip, like we were turning Karen's own voice into evidence. I hit answer. Karen's voice came through sweet and concerned, like she was auditioning. "Sure? Thank God. Dad's a wreck. Jolene's crying. You can come home if you stop lying." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Why did you have tells in a bag with my name written in marker?" I asked, and hearing myself say it out loud made it realer. Karen sighed like I was exhausting. "Because I'm trying to save you. You don't even remember what you do half the time. You were wet and out of it. What if you're blacking out? What if you're unstable?" Dorothy's jaw locked. I could hear her breathing through her nose, controlled. Karen kept going, voice soft, dangerous. "If CPS thinks you're a danger to yourself, they'll make decisions for you. You want that on paper? You want Dad's lawyer hearing about it? Because I've been protecting you, sure." My stomach turned. "Protecting me from what?" I asked. "From my trust?" A tiny silence, just long enough to prove I'd hit something true. Then Karen laughed, light and fake. "You're paranoid," she said. "That's what I'm saying. Come home and apologize, and I'll tell Maria you're just confused." I looked at Dorothy. Her eyes were on the phone like she wanted to crush it in her fist. "No," I said, and my voice surprised me with how steady it was. "I'm not coming back." Karen's sweetness hardened. "Fine," she snapped, mask slipping for one sharp second.
Then you can rot at Dorothy's and see what happens when Dad finally decides you're too much." The line clicked dead. Dorothy wrote one sentence in her notebook. She tried to make me say unstable. Then she drew a straight line under it like a door slamming, and I realized Karen had just given us a near miss. If I'd begged, if I'd apologized, she would have recorded it, wouldn't she? 2 days later, Maria came to Dorothy's with a manila folder and a laptop bag, set down like tools. "The bank cooperated," she said. "First National. Transaction recorded at 2:47 p.m. on October 14th. My stomach flipped. A timestamp is a weapon when it's aimed right. Maria slid a printed still across the table. One sentence sensory pause. The refrigerator hum, the wall clock tick, the dry whisper of paper against wood. Even grainy and black and white, Karen was unmistakable. Ponytail, yoga pants, head tilted like she was checking her reflection in the ATM screen. Timestamp at the bottom, 1447.12. And behind her, reflected in the glass, the white sedan sat like a signature. Dented bumper, pink frame. Dorothy's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God!" I stared until my eyes burned because this wasn't my word anymore. It was the camera's. Maria's voice stayed flat, professional. Raymond claimed Schur withdrew the $800. He said Karen discovered it missing and confronted her. So she took it, then staged it. I heard myself ask, "Does Karen know you have this?" "No," Maria said, and for the first time, her neutrality cracked with something like satisfaction. "Not yet." That was the real power. Karen was still walking around with her mask on, thinking she'd already won, didn't she? Maria topped the timestamp. 2:47 p.m., she said. "Now we lock your alibi with documents." Dorothy drove me to school with my hospital bracelet hidden under my sleeve like a bruise. The office smelled like printer toner and floor wax. The secretary's face softened when she saw Dorothy's emergency order on the counter. "We need Schur's attendance record for October 14th, Dorothy said. Paper slid out of the printer, warm, like fresh truth. Chemistry, present. Time, through 3:15 p.m. Then we went to Mr. Leonard Vance's classroom. Dry erase marker smell. Faint ammonia. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time as something other than a student. "She was here," he said, already opening his gradebook. "Front row. Asked about the lab write-up." "Write it down," Dorothy said. His pen scratched across school letterhead. Date, time, signature, each stroke sounding louder than it should have. He handed it over, and Dorothy slid it into a plastic sleeve like it was gold. In the parking lot, Maria read it and nodded once. "This makes the ATM story physically impossible," she said. My breath came out shaky. "So what else did she plant?" I asked, because Karen hadn't put me in a storm for one lie. Maria's eyes stayed hard. "People who build one false world usually build several," she said. "We keep pulling threads." "They're tied to a pharmacy account that isn't Schur's, not Raymond's either." One sentence sensory pause. The air conditioning hum got suddenly loud, like the room was bracing. Maria slid a printout across. "They were filled under Trent Barlow." Trent. Karen's boyfriend. The guy who sat on our couch like it was his, called me kiddo like he owned the word, ate my cereal straight out of the box and told me to relax. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step. Daniels nodded. He filed a report for stolen medication on October 17th. Dorothy's eyebrows shot up. 3 days after Schur was thrown out? Exactly, Maria said. If these were missing on the 14th, why wait? Because the report wasn't for truth. It was for paperwork, for a file, for a story that looked official if no one asked the right questions, wasn't it? Daniel sealed the bag. The plastic crinkled like a warning. "Get the pharmacy records officially," he told Maria. "Already in motion," she said. Back at Dorothy's, Maria brought the text message printouts Karen had used on my father. The messages were nasty, sloppy, fake brave. The number wasn't mine. I'd never seen it. Dorothy laid them next to the ATM still, like she was assembling a museum exhibit of Karen's lies. "So where did this phone come from?" she asked. Maria said, "Purchase point, activation record, cameras." The activation record pointed to Route 9 Quick Mart, and the name made my skin prickle. Route 9 again, like the road had threads tied into every part of this. Maria returned with a still image dated October 10th. High camera angle, candy racks, lotto machine. Karen stood at the counter in a designer jacket I recognized. Her hair was down, her posture was casual. In her hand, a prepaid phone in a blister pack.
Cash on the counter, no card trail, no easy undo. One sentence sensory pause. The kitchen felt too quiet for how loud my heartbeat got. "She bought it 4 days before," Dorothy said, voice shaking with anger. Maria nodded. "And that number is what texted Raymond the proof messages. $40, a cheap phone, a lie built early and carefully, like she'd put it on her calendar." Maria's next folder was thicker. "Now motive," she said. "Motive lives in statements. Raymond didn't come to Dorothy's. He fought through the answering machine, angry messages, righteous tone, the kind of certainty that doesn't require facts. Dorothy saved every tape. When Maria finally got Raymond's bank records, she spread them across the table like ugly playing cards. Toner smell, numbers, dates, lines that meant nothing until she circled a pattern with red ink. "Forged checks," she said, "over about 2 years, roughly $18,000. Dorothy's hand went to her chest like the number had weight. Maria slid a check image toward us. The signature line read Raymond Walls, but the handwriting was too neat, too careful, like someone tracing adulthood. My voice came out thin. "Karen?" Maria nodded. "Checks to cash, checks to K. Walls. Some deposits tied to her accounts." Dorothy's mouth tightened. "She's been draining him." And, while draining him, Maria said, she needed a scapegoat, a family story that explained missing money before anyone checked. Dorothy flipped another page and froze. "What is this line?" she asked. Maria leaned in. "Attempted trust disbursement request," she said. "Denied. Karen wasn't a legal guardian." My throat went tight. So she was testing it. "Yes," Maria said. "And if the beneficiary is labeled incapable, control can shift. That's why she pushed the unstable angle." The room felt colder, and my cocoa suddenly tasted too sweet.
Karen hadn't framed me because she hated me. She framed me because the math worked in her head, didn't it? We scanned what mattered. We copied what could disappear. We stacked paper until it stopped feeling like my father's house had the only version of reality. And Karen stayed loud on voicemail, still acting like she was the savior. "Tell Maria I'm worried," she'd say. "Tell her Sure needs help." Every message was her trying to plant first. And every message made me more certain we needed to move faster, didn't it? Trap. Maria called one evening, and Dorothy put it on speaker while I sat at the table pretending homework mattered more than my own life file. "Trent Barlow was arrested," Maria said. Dorothy straightened. "Here?" "Nevada," Maria said. "Federal fraud." "How big?" Dorothy asked. Maria exhaled once. $400,000. The number hit like a slap. Trent stole enough to ruin strangers and still helped Karen try to steal my $45,000. Greed doesn't get full. It gets louder. Maria's voice stayed clipped. "He wants a deal." He's offering cooperation. A week later, Maria dropped a stapled packet on the table. 12 pages. Signed. It landed like a brick. One-sentence sensory pause. The stapled metal glinted under the kitchen light, and nobody reached for it right away. Maria read parts out loud because my hand shook too hard to hold the paper steady. Trent admitted Karen asked for empty pill bottles. Karen bought the burner phone on October 10th. Karen withdrew $800 at 2:47 p.m. on October 14th to create the missing cash story. Karen's stated goal, get me declared unfit so she could handle the trust. Maria tapped one paragraph. She quotes her, she said.
Everything is in place. Dorothy shut her eyes for a beat, like she was keeping rage contained inside her ribs. So it's not just suspicion, she whispered. No, Maria said. It's documentation. Karen still didn't know. That was the point. She was still standing on a stage made of cardboard, performing for an audience that had already found the trap door, didn't she? Family court smelled like old carpet and bleach, like someone tried to scrub years of bad decisions out of the walls and failed. Dorothy held my hand, and I could feel her pulse through her glove. Karen sat in a blazer, posture perfect. Raymond sat beside her, rigid, avoiding my eyes. Jolene sat behind them with her hands knotted so tight her knuckles looked white. Karen saw me and offered the concerned sister smile, sad, soft, fake, and my skin crawled. I focused on objects, Maria's folder, Officer Daniels' sealed envelope, the printed ATM still with 2:47 p.m. stamped like a verdict. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, and everyone stood. Her robes swished, and her eyes landed on me. 15, small, holding my grandmother's hand, and something in her face hardened, like she'd already seen where this was going. Karen got to speak first, and she performed. I'm worried, she said. I found pills. I found cash. Dad had to protect himself. Her voice trembled in the places she wanted it to. She made herself sound like the only adult in the room. Raymond nodded along, like her words were his own thoughts being read back to him. The county attorney, Colin, let her talk. Neat tie, tired eyes, pen poised. He waited like a man letting someone finish their own knot.
One-sentence sensory pause. The click of Colin's pen. The squeak of Karen's shoe as she shifted. The whisper of paper in Dorothy's lap. Then Colin stood. Miss Walls, he said, you testified the $800 was stolen by Schur on October 14th. Karen nodded, eyes shining. Yes. Colin lifted a photo with 2 fingers and asked, do you recognize this? Karen didn't flinch. No. Colin turned it toward the judge, then toward Karen. ATM still. 2:47 p.m. Karen's face, her car reflected behind her look a confession. Karen blinked once. Too slow. This is First National's ATM camera. Time-stamped 2:47 p.m. on October 14th. That is you withdrawing $800 from Raymond Walls' account. Karen's mouth opened. That's... Colin kept his voice even. Schur Walls was in chemistry until 3:15 p.m. Attendance in a signed teacher statement confirm it. She could not be at the ATM. Karen snapped her head toward Raymond like he could erase a timestamp by believing harder. Raymond stared at the photo like it was a ghost. I withdrew money for groceries, Karen tried fast. Dad asked me. Colin lifted the missing cash envelope. Raymond's handwriting, the amount written clear. You called this missing, he said. Then you produced $800 bills as proof Schur took it. Karen's jaw flexed. Her eyes darted.
calculation without a place to land. Judge Morrison's voice cut in, cold. Miss Walls, you are under oath. For the first time, Karen's mask slipped just enough to show irritation underneath, like reality was being rude by existing in the room. Jolene was called next, and I didn't know if she'd shrink back into silence or finally speak. She walked to the stand with trembling hands and a thin voice. Karen watched her like a warning.
Colin asked, "Did you ever hear Karen discuss Cher's trust?" "Objection," Karen blurted, too loud. "Overruled," Judge Morrison said. "Answer." Jolene swallowed, eyes flicking from Raymond to Karen to me, like she was choosing which fire would burn her. "She said it wasn't fair," Jolene admitted. "She said Cher didn't deserve money set aside." Colin nodded once, and then asked about October. The phrase, Jolene closed her eyes. I heard her say, "Everything is in place." The exact same words Trent had put on paper. Now, they lived in the air of the courtroom, too. Karen's face went rigid. She shook her head slowly, like denial was a spell. But Jolene's voice steadied. "I stayed quiet because I didn't want trouble," she said, and her eyes got wet. "But Cher almost died." The room went so still I could hear my own breath scrape. Then Raymond took the stand, shoulders squared like a man walking into a job interview instead of a reckoning. He swore in without looking at me. Colin lifts an eyebrow. "Did you verify it?" Raymond's jaw works. "No." The word lands like a brick. Colin steps closer. "You didn't call the school. You didn't call the bank. You didn't call a doctor. You didn't call law enforcement. You did nothing but accept Karen's word." Judge Morrison leaned forward after that, voice sharp enough to cut. She made him say it. He hadn't driven me to Dorothy's. He hadn't called to confirm I arrived. He expelled a child into a storm and done nothing to check whether she lived through the night. Raymond tried one last excuse. "She's difficult." And the judge didn't let it land. "Difficulty is not an excuse for neglect," she said.
"This is abandonment." Raymond stared down at the table like the wood could hide him. Karen kept glancing at Colin's folder like she could will the remaining pages to vanish. Sentencing came fast because the evidence didn't wobble. Colin laid it out clean. ATM at 2:47, chemistry through 3:15, burner phone bought October 10th with cash, pharmacy records tied to Trent, forged checks, a signed 12-page confession, Jolene's testimony. Judge Morrison read from her notes like she was reciting the weather, only the forecast was consequences. "This court finds a deliberate scheme to fabricate evidence against a minor," she said. "Financial motive, methods that endangered the child." Karen's shoulders lifted with a shallow breath when the judge mentioned a suspended term. Hope, stupid and quick. Then the judge continued, "Felony conviction, 5 years probation, restitution $18,800. That number didn't sound like money. It sounded like a door locking. Karen's face drained. A felony doesn't wash off. It stains. Permanent custody went to Dorothy Reeves. The gavel cracked once, loud enough to make me flinch. And Karen's responsible sister story died right there on the record. Outside the courthouse, the air was cold and bright, winter's sun sharpening every edge. Dorothy held the custody order like a passport, and Maria stood close enough that the world couldn't swing back and hit me. Raymond came after us down the steps, faster than I expected. "Sure," he called, voice thick like it was supposed to mean something now. "We can fix this. Karen's sick. She fooled me." Dorothy stepped between us and raised a second paper. "No," she said, steady. Raymond frowned at it like paper was an insult. "What is that?" "Permanent custody and a 500-foot restraining order."
Raymond's face flickered. Shock, then anger, like volume could overrule ink.
I'm her father. Officer Daniel stood at the curb, arms crossed, making the boundary visible without saying a word. Raymond looked past Dorothy at me, pleading. Sure, tell them. I made a mistake. My chest tightened with the old reflex, the part of me that wanted him to choose me, finally, publicly, the way he never had on the porch. But the evidence didn't beg. It just existed. I stepped back so Dorothy filled the space between us completely. You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a choice. Raymond flinched like I'd hit him. Dorothy took my elbow. We're leaving, she said, and we walked to her car with the order folded in her purse like a lock. Karen stood outside with the restitution amount on paper, $18,800, while felony sat on the docket like a brand, and her responsible sister status collapsed in front of everyone who'd ever believed her. Raymond walked past her without even looking. Jolene followed, eyes down. Karen was left by that crooked girl boss frame while strangers whispered, and I got in Dorothy's car and didn't turn around.